Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Liaison Reports meeting. And I think we'll go ahead and begin with Health and Human Services, Environmental Health. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Gina James, Health and Human Services. I had a couple of items to touch base with the board on. The first item, just you maybe have noticed, I've scheduled a couple work sessions with the board. So we have a work session scheduled tomorrow. We're going to be talking about the Consolidated Homeless Grant. We just received the application for the new 2-year cycle. So we'll be covering that tomorrow.
Would you repeat that? The grant, which grant is that?
It's the Consolidated
Oh.
Homeless Grant.
Thank you.
Yep. So we'll go through that tomorrow afternoon at the work session. I also scheduled with the board on April 5th work session. We've received an amendment to our contract with the Developmental Disabilities Administration. So I'd like to talk through the board of what the amendment is, what's included in that, and how we want to move forward with that. So that will be on April 5th. I also wanted to ask the board, I know we administer the criminal justice treatment account funds that come to us from the state. We've been doing that for a couple years now. When we first started administering those funds, we issued an RFP to select a couple of providers to work with. We'd like to send another RFP out. It's just because it's been a couple of years, so we'd like to do that. We do anticipate a new contract starting in July, but we'd like to send an RFP out. It would be contingent upon, receiving the state contract and funding. But I just wanted to touch base with the board and see if you would be okay with us drafting and putting that together and getting that posted.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We have, does legal look at those and so in the sense that they want to know that stuff is in that protects the county as best it can?
Yeah. So we have a template that we work off of that has been approved by legal. We customize it depending on what we're issuing the RFP for, and then they look at it again through it to make sure it's.
I'm coming to learn that while you want some parts of it broad, you have to be really specific on other areas. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Another item I wanted to touch base with the board on, just as sort of a heads up, I guess, I occasionally meet with my counterparts from the other counties, our neighboring counties, mostly Lewis, Pacific, Grays Harbor, Wahkiakum, just to go over some of the things that we have in common, the work that we do. One of the items that's come up recently is a discussion on the designated crisis responders, or you may have heard DCRs. These are professionals that respond to individuals who are in crisis in the community where they need an evaluation and assessment to consider involuntary commitment. So these particular professionals are the ones that are designated by the state to do those evaluations and assessments. The other counties in their communities have some concerns about the DCRs and response times and the service that's being provided. And in talking with our jail and our hospital, it sounds like there's very similar concerns going on. So I just wanted to mention that to the board. I know those services are contracted out of Great Rivers Behavioral Health Organization. And so there's some conversations going on about that and about how we can kind of work together to try to maybe look at that a little bit more. So I just wanted to kind of raise awareness of that.
Can you give me an example of a problem?
So, so the hospital will have someone in their emergency department who either maybe it was brought to them by a law enforcement officer, for example. The individual is in crisis, a harm to themselves or potentially other people. And so the hospital will call for one of these designated crisis responders to come and do the assessment. And then it's taking a really long time for those people to come and do the assessment. And so, it's sometimes taking more than 12 hours for someone to respond, in which case the individual then is, the hospital is limited in how they can hold people. And the person sometimes is there voluntarily saying, I do want help, I'll do the assessment. But then the longer it takes, the individual is not as likely to stay to get that assessment. And so sometimes the individual will choose to leave. And so that's an example of.
So who do we have that's a DCR here? Are these the people that are in the sheriff's department that are paid for?
No, it's a different service. So it's through the Great Rivers Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization. They contract for those DCRs through an agency out of Olympia, Olympic Behavioral Health and Olympic
Thurston Mason.
Behavioral Health and
Thurston
Recovery.
Mason.
Thurston Mason. So the organization is stationed out of the Olympia area, and they hire the professionals who are the designated crisis responders to come and do those assessments.
Okay, and what's the magnitude of the problem here? Is it 5 incidences a day or?
That I don't know. I can try to get some more numbers. I'm a little bit out of my element because I'm not so directly connected to that work. I just know it's come up across, in some of the other counties. And when I reached out to some local groups, they had the similar concerns, but I can try to find out some more information.
So the hope of the HHS people is to get together and influence the BHO?
To just kind of express what their communities are experiencing and see if there's any way to address it.
So that is an issue that has been discussed by the board that I represent this county on.
Mhm.
And the challenge is workforce. There just simply is not enough. There are not enough people that are qualified to do that. The state has certain requirements on what kind of training these individuals have.
Mhm.
And yeah, we've been asking staff to develop a plan to recruit more, to train more people. And one of the responses is, this is all the BHOs are having the same kind of workforce shortage problem. And
Yeah.
it continues to be a significant problem.
Mhm.
So I don't know if the standards are too high. It sounds like maybe that's part of the problem. And the job can be done by other folks. We need to be investigating that, but
Mhm.
the state has their
Yeah.
their control on it.
You would think they'd have some kind of overflow mechanism, right?
Yeah. Well, they do. County jail.
Wow.
That's what we're trying to
Besides
avoid.
county
They,
jail,
speaking
right?
of, I saw Marin's pop up.
Yeah.
I'm Marin.
Hi, good afternoon. I just wanted to comment on the DCR issue. I've been complaining about it for some time. For obvious reasons, the jail typically is at the end of the list. We're a secure environment and the person's going to be safe. So when there are people to respond to in the community, when we need a DCR, when they need a DCR, we'll be the last to get response. And we've experienced response times that are as long as 12 hours, which means then we're dealing with, if they don't meet an ITA criteria, releasing these vulnerable people out our front doors after hours. And so it's been something I've been saying isn't working. In my opinion, the regionalization is what made it not work. It's just too far. I mean, if you have DCRs responding from Pacific County to Cowlitz County, and then back to Pacific County, that's set up to not work.
Yeah.
So previous to it regionalizing in this way, it was local. And in my experience, that worked better for Cowlitz County. I don't see how even with a workforce fully staffed, to have the response area that many miles apart is a daunting system to have work.
I'm sadly confused about our folks with the sheriff's department that the four, forget what you call them, but I think you know who I'm talking about.
The navigators.
No, they're
Navigators. are another group.
co-responders. Yeah.
Co-responders. that's
Yeah,
right.
and it seems like there's overlap here.
So I would say the co-responders with law enforcement are a level down in terms of responding to, they would potentially be the ones responding initially to a crisis if someone's out on the street or whatnot. But if those co-responders feel like the individual is a harm to themselves or others, they could call the DCR. The co-responders we have can't provide that service. They can't do that assessment and evaluation. It has to be designated crisis responders to do that. And so they could potentially call and try to get one of those DCRs to come down, but it most often takes hours. And so
Yeah,
then,
no,
and then the individual's
I
lost.
understand that. I don't have any idea at all at how occupied our four folks are in the sheriff's department and the other folks at the local PDs. What I do think is that if we have a delay in the DCR appearing, that it wouldn't be unreasonable to count on these co-responders to actually pick up the slack there. I mean, we end up with lots of systems where we have to do some sort of cooperative effort, and it sounds like it's not a easily solvable problem right now because of whatever criteria, staffing issues and all that. But I think we have enough staff to handle that somehow, at least. Anyhow.
Yeah, I do think that's part of the reason law enforcement maybe looked at that co-responder model is to help with that situation in that sense.
Okay, so then if the chairman doesn't mind, the credentials of the co-respondents are basically fairly significant. The DCRs are like MDs.
I don't know the exact criteria. I just know they have the specific ability to do those assessments and evaluations. I don't know exactly what that means on paper, but
Okay, the co-respondents are supposed to be able to do that.
they're mental health professionals,
Right.
yes. But the state certifies these specific designated crisis responders to do that particular assessment. So our co-responders aren't able to do that particular piece
Okay.
by design. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a
It
little
makes
bit-
you wonder what it'd take to bridge that gap.
Well, a portion of it is there aren't enough incidents to require somebody full-time. That's why they're sharing them region-wide, but we're such a broad region. I mean, they
Yeah.
take all the time to travel everywhere and it's
Right.
frustrating. I'm sure it's frustrating for the DCRs too, because
Mhm.
they'd rather be helping people rather than sitting in a car. So,
Yeah, yeah. So, like I mentioned, I just wanted to bring that up just to share that other counties are kind of having some of those concerns. Our jail and our hospital also have some of those concerns. And I know, we sit on the board at Great Rivers, so just letting our representative there hear that.
Thank you.
And And then the last item I just wanted to touch base on is 1/10. So I know we've kind of had some discussion a little bit about 1/10 that come up most recently at our Board of Health meeting. With the 1/10 coming up this next year for consideration, what some of the communication that I've had with some of the other departments who receive 1/10 funding is to, this was back during the budget cycle when that was first starting, was, okay, you know, the board has expressed they'd like to hear from you programmatic review.
It's not contagious.
A programmatic review, ideally before the next budget cycle, when the board will be making some or considering other requests. And so that was my last communication with other departments. I wanted to circle back to that since it's come up recently. I'd like to send out another reminder about that to other departments to say, and I'd like to CC the board and the clerk to say, please work with the clerk to schedule this opportunity to share about your programs with 1/10 and how it's been working for your department. So that was sort of my thought. I just wanted to touch base with the board and make sure that that sounds okay. I know the Board of Health has interest in learning about what's happening, and with those discussions happening at work sessions, I think, you know, there's good opportunity for Board of Health members to attend, to listen, to watch them later, so that they can get that information from those departments too. So I just wanted to circle back to that and see if that sounds okay, or if there's a different direction.
So I know the chairman of the health board did send out the pie graph that you've shared with us before to all the members because of, I think, a meeting that you had with him. And so we've gotten some recent information about, well, it's for 2023. So you were talking more about, are we going to place it on the ballot, or we can't do that until we've heard from everybody on how well their programs are doing, and or not?
I'm open. I just wanted to communicate what kind of I had envisioned as how to move forward. And if we want to do, you know, if we want to do it a different way, we certainly can, but.
And there's only three programs that use that money.
I think there's.
Jail, juvie, and drug court.
Superior Court, jail, juvenile, and there's a little bit that goes towards like prosecuting attorney's office and public defender's office.
And the sheriff.
And the sheriff. Thank you. I knew there was.
Oh, yeah,
another
that's
one.
right. Yeah, kind of a 6 month.
It's only the big one.
6 month update or something like that on how the program's going, right?
Yeah, I think what you're proposing isn't okay. It's excellent because we really need that. Otherwise, if we come into trying to decide on the tax and we don't know what we're doing, it really is going to force us just to say no. And that'll leave a lot of questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll send some communication out and I'll CC the board and ask that they work with the clerk to schedule those times.
Super.
Okay. That was all I had.
Perfect. Any other questions for Tina?
Yeah, just in case, I think you were possibly asking, would we go and put the vote of the tax to the people? You know much more than I do about that, but my sense is that that is like codifying that in concrete. And currently we have it where the board puts a sunset clause on it, so we can rescind that at least at the boundaries. And I wouldn't want to lose that ability to undo a tax.
If we want to have them vote on a measure that includes a sunset clause, I mean, that just schedules the election for the next time. If we want to go that way, yeah, we can do that. It doesn't preclude having a sunset.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
But it does create the disruption in the continuity of planning and budgeting, but.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's where we
Well-
got stuck last time, I think.
Taxes should be made as painful to us as possible, not to the citizens, to us, the
Yeah,
managers, if you will.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks, Gina.
thank you. The next item on that agenda list is the museum. Joseph did send me a one-page written report. I'll just share that
Okay.
with you. If you don't mind. Next category. Everybody else in the room? No. Public health or public defense, event center, Noxious Weeds and WSU Extension. And a few other people, but those are the next ones on the agenda we have. So public defenders. No. Although we just heard from him yesterday on the salary schedule issues. Kim.
Not on. Good afternoon. Kim Bocut with the Cowlitz County Event Center. I just have a couple of updates for you guys. Silver Lake Visitor Center, as of this week, we're open 7 days a week now through the end of October. We're still open 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and then we'll go to summer hours here after the anniversary, so about mid-May. And then the event center, I just wanted to give a quick overview.
So
This-
before you go on,
Sure.
I've always been curious as to the financial viability of that service. Do we cover our costs even if we change the hours and reduce it down, or because it depends on sales of gifts, right? Or
Correct.
souvenirs.
Correct. A little bit of the history of why our gift shop is there. When the county owned Hofstad Bluffs, we had a gift shop there as well as a restaurant. And Silver Lake Visitor Center, the state was looking for a partner with their gift shop. And it made a lot of sense to have the two different gift shops. It kept our seasonal employees, it gave them a few more hours. And also it put us in touch with the tourists that were coming up the highway to say, hey, keep on going. There's more to see up the highway. And so we kind of had a hand in that. And then once Hofstad sold, we kept the gift shop at Silver Lake for those same reasons, but also as the tourism director, it's nice to be able to have kind of a pulse on what's going on in the tourism community, where people are coming from, how they've heard about us. I try to work up there a few hours a week during the summertime, especially during COVID. I was up there a little bit more. But I work alongside our seasonal employees, and the gift shop is financially viable. We do have an agreement that Claire set up for us several years ago, a resolution that allows us to be able to transfer money from that Silver Lake account into the Expo if needed. Many years ago, we used to have to come back to the board quite frequently. I wouldn't say yearly, but it was frequently to talk about budget shortfalls over at the event center. At the time, it was the Expo Center. So we do have that option available to us to be able to, if we have any budget shortfalls at the end of the year, I believe there's a cap of $50,000 that could be transferred from the Silver Lake account to the Expo Center. We have not had to do that for several years, but so that's kind of also another reason to keep that gift shop under contract with us.
So where do those extra funds go to? That don't go into paying salaries and.
It's an
benefits?
enterprise fund up there, so it just is perpetual, but it does fund, I believe, it does fund some of my salary. It funds a little bit of our department head secretary's salary and a little bit of an event coordinator salary.
I
So
remember that now.
It does
yes.
help to fund part of our department.
That's right. Your salary comes out of about 6 different budgets, right? I
It
mean,
does.
Yeah, it's the way it's
Yeah.
all cobbled together.
Yeah.
Because we have all these different funding sources.
Correct. Yeah, my salary is funded by 4 different budgets.
Yeah.
So-
4, sorry.
Not 6, but 4. So yeah, so I'm excited that that's, last year was a great year for us. We haven't had American Cruise Lines come up. They docked at the Kalama terminal and bussed people up 3 to 4 days a week. We have that contract again through the spring. We'll see how that goes, but last year it was went very well for us. So.
Great.
Okay.
And then my next topic was the event center and just our event days. We are still a little bit short-staffed in that we have 2 employees out on family medical leave. And we have 1 open position. So we're a little bit low on staff, but to date, we've hosted 121 days of events at the event center. That's inside and outside versus 100 event days in 2022. So we're getting back to whatever normal is. That's exciting. Inside the event center, the conference center itself, we've hosted 51 events to date, year to date. Last year, the same time frame was 41. And then outside on the Expo property, which is everything outside of the conference center, we've had 70 event days so far this year versus 59 last year. So we are staying busy over there. And like I said, we're a little bit short-staffed, but we're pulling it together with the staff that we have, and we've brought in a few temps, but.
Your epic begins in October.
What's that?
When you give us numbers of 121 days, where does that time begin?
January 1st. So 121 event days. So on any given day, we could have 4 events, which would
Okay.
count as 4 event days.
Excellent. And that's 121 days to date.
Correct.
Interesting. Thank you.
Mhm.
Very good.
I spent 2 days last week there for the Spirit Lake Cowlitz Tootle Collaborative. And it was nice to be back and attending meetings there. And of course, we all were at the luncheon for the Cowlitz Economic Development Council. And it was nice to have that facility back and available. Are you at all connected with the hotel project?
I haven't spoken with the developer since he reached out before they put in the proposal, the most recent proposal. Talking with one of the PDA board members this afternoon. They do have a meeting today at 4:30. Today is the deadline for them to have a proposal to the PDA for that project. So that meeting is happening at 4:30. So the PFD board doesn't meet until the 3rd Wednesday of the month. So I don't expect to have an update other than I believe the Daily News may be there, so they may be reporting on it. So that's why I received the phone call. Just as an FYI, we might be on the front page of the paper again tomorrow. So
It looked like J.H. Kelly's event was a real success.
J.H. Kelly's 100th anniversary last week, it was the 17th on St. Patrick's Day, was a great event.
Yeah.
I have worked with them since 2003 on their events. And I have to say that this one it knocked them out of the park. It was great to work with their team. They were very well organized. They used to do it yearly. They, in 2018, decided to do it every 5 years. And so they had their 95th anniversary with us, and they really put a lot of thought and effort into the 100th anniversary. And so it was a great event.
He took about all the space you had, didn't he?
It took, yes, they rented the entire event center plus one of the outbuildings. And then they hired the Kiwanis to help with parking across the street. So they made a little bit of money too.
Yeah. Plus it caused a Facebook commotion because everybody wanted to know where Ari Long went.
Oh, that's right. The statue went missing and he
Yeah.
was in the event center. And it was a little bit eerie because he's life size. And where they had him, I was walking down the hall and talking with somebody, and I looked and I was like, oh, I thought it was a man sitting on a bench. He's eerily lifelike if you haven't spent any time up close and personal. I've just driven by up till this point, and it was neat. And they received the key to the city from the mayor. So it was a great event. And we were happy to have it back, as we are with all of our events. It's really great to be back into the event business.
Any
So that's all I have
questions?
for you.
Maybe we can talk offline about a metric, like 121 days could be 10 meetings in one day, and then you're idle and that makes quite a big difference in how you take a look at things.
It can,
So
yep.
I'd probably be interested in how many hours you have available. So you might say, I operate 12 hours a day, or you pick some number and you've got so many rooms that you rent, and that multiplies out to a number. That would be the denominator, and the numerator would be, I rented this and this and this, and you just add those hours up and you see how much usage the facility gets.
So we use event days because every event, the EDC luncheon or a small Kaiser workshop takes, our event coordinators from the time that they meet with the client, they have the interview, and then they contract, and then they collect a deposit, insurance. If it's an event with catering, they communicate the catering numbers. If they're ordering audiovisual services, whether the event is 3 hours long or 12 hours long, takes about the same amount of staff time to prepare it. So we've always just counted days as event days, and that's been our reporting mechanism for many moons, without getting, extrapolating, like you mentioned, the hours and times, and the time that it takes to put an event together far exceeds the actual event time. So a 2-hour meeting will still take staff a lot of time to put together and coordinate it. Once the event happens, that's the easy part. So it's the contracting. And so each event, I wouldn't say that every event takes the same amount of time. J.H. Kelly would be one that, took weeks.
Yeah, I was going to
But,
ask you.
that's an exception, but for a standard meeting, every event, regardless if it's 2 hours, 4 hours, an all-day meeting takes about the same amount of personnel time to put together. I don't know if that answered what you were.
It did. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with the answer, but I think you were trying to address it. So because the J.H. Kelly event is substantial, and to lump that in with other events just doesn't seem like it gives me a sense. I'd like to see J.H. Kelly type events all year long.
Correct.
you
Yeah,
know?
and you're right. A multi-day event is far more advantageous than a 2-hour meeting.
Yeah.
And we would love to have multi-day events that happen Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. Those are the easiest, but.
Which is why we've been supportive of a hotel going in there to provide the additional days. So you can have multiple day events, and we get heads and beds, and that's where the economic engine, that's what it depends on. So.
That's correct. We would really like, the bread and butter of a conference center should be those midweek meetings that are multiple days. And if we are able to host a community event on the weekends for a local nonprofit or a local company that wants to celebrate, that should be the icing on the cake. And we're not getting those multiple day midweek. We do get some, but as an example, the Department of Natural Resources worked with our staff quite extensively to plan an event that was going to be a 1-day event. And then something changed internally, and they said, this really needs to be a 2-day event. We've got a lot of topics to cover. We can't hold it there. So they moved it to Skamania Lodge because they had the lodging and they were able to do a 2-day event there. And our staff, we didn't get reimbursed for any of that time. That's just a service that we provide, but it was very frustrating to not be able to offer the service of having a hotel on site.
If you've been to the Tri-Cities Event Center, there's a walkway that goes between the event center and the hotel.
Yeah.
So very convenient for the conferences. So
Yeah.
it's a great meeting place. Don't get me wrong, but you're right. Those meetings if it's just a meeting, it doesn't really generate the revenue we're looking for.
Mhm. Did I answer your question, Commissioner? Okay, any other
right.
questions for me?
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. It's time for a discussion about noxious weeds, I believe. No plant samples today?
Not today. They're actually gathering in my office as we speak. Good afternoon. Jennifer Mendoza with Cowlitz County Noxious Weeds. I have a couple of updates to share today. We will be holding a workshop tomorrow for many of our public agency partners, and we have quite a few county staff attending as well. So we're really excited about that. It's going to be over in the GMR. So we'll be covering a lot of our noxious weed identities, especially the ones we found in the last year. And it should be good. So about 70 attendees. So we're
Great.
looking forward to that. We do have 2 grant modifications that we'll be submitting for approval in the next couple of weeks. One is a Mount St. Helens modification for continuing invasive plant treatment within the monument. It'll be about $40,000. And then we have a modification to our Class A grant, which is the high priority species. The WSDA has offered us an additional $1,500 to help treat some of the new species that are Class A's that we found last year. So we will be able to fund treatments for any egg leaf spurge, giant hogweed, and then continue to do our treatments for false brome and the Class A thistles. So it's just a little bit of extra funding that they had available that will help us out. Also, since the last time I came to a liaison meeting, we have hired our second inspector. Kelly Norgard will be our south zone, so south half of the county inspector. And last week I went to the coordinators conference, which was everybody who holds my position throughout the state. And so we all got together and learned about what's going on statewide. We heard from a lot of different agencies. We have a couple of different coordinating efforts going on related to Tree of Heaven, some of the aquatic species. And so that was really, really good to participate in. So.
Great. All right.
Any questions about noxious weeds right now?
I do, only because we had a discussion today and I'll use the discussion today, although it really has nothing to do with it. When we're talking about, they were talking about building a new road.
Mhm.
Are you guys involved in that? Because when you start disturbing soil and doing stuff and bringing in gravel and all that other stuff, I would guess it's really hard to say that there's not going to be something pop up, right?
Yes.
So how do you monitor that?
Right now I'm getting a lot of the notifications when building permits or things go through. I'm not sure if I'm on all of the right lists, but I'm trying to get onto all the right lists to get those notifications. But when I do get that pieces of information, and I've been looking into the Silver Lake one as well, we compare it to the noxious weeds map that we have and see if there's anything of concern. Not all of our noxious weeds would be a concern in a construction site based on the fact that they might already be very widespread. But some of our species are concerning in a construction site because it could make the problem worse if it spreads by rhizome, or it could be something that is only in a small area. So it's something that we would want to continue to look at. If we don't have any data, it might be that we haven't been there. So sometimes I do ask for a site visit with the lead project planner or whoever it is. And so we can go out and investigate and see if there's anything that we are concerned about.
Yeah.
And then from there, we would advise on measures to take to prevent the spread of that weed if it's present. Maybe treatments need to happen beforehand. Maybe the land there could need a quarantine or something. It might need to be, if it does need to be moved as part of the project, we can suggest that it gets moved to a specific location and that location is monitored so that we know where the weeds could be spreading if they're going to resprout. So it's definitely something we try to keep an eye on and advise for when we find it.
Okay. And I'm assuming, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming there's some noxious weeds that would overrun some traditional or whatever type stuff that's already there. Yeah,
Some,
so you have to be
some,
careful of those.
yes.
I think also you may have been asking, it's a low area. They're gonna have to probably truck in material. And I think I'll truck in these noxious weeds from here and bring them over to here.
That's also a concern, wherever the materials or land is being sourced from, because soil holds seeds that we can't really see.
Yeah.
So there is a couple of programs. There's a weed-free gravel program that I've been looking into. And what that is if you are a gravel producer, we would do an inspection of the area that you're harvesting the gravel from, and then also of the facility that it's being stored in to see if there are noxious species that could contaminate the gravel. And if it shows that there are no noxious species, we can give it a gravel certification, kind of like a weed-free certification. It's not something that's really launched. I think Clallam County has a really good model for how they're using that throughout their entire public works system. But not all of the counties are able to do that yet, so.
Yeah. And Commissioner Mortensen's right. That was one of my concerns when you bring in foreign stuff to a place that's, you could change that.
There's always a
Yeah.
risk.
Yeah. Okay, appreciate the.
Well, I
Yeah.
think that might be some good information for us to have for our vegetation department or, you know, the rock work that we do. We seem to be doing that in all the roads and all the road work we have. So,
Yeah.
When I brought up some dredge spoils from my father-in-law's place when we were doing something on property, then all of a sudden I get Scotch bloom. So, so I know it travels, right? And then I have to
Especially-
work with that and get it out of there. So,
especially Scotch.
yeah, right.
Were you successful getting rid of it?
Yeah, I'm getting rid of it. I blame.
monitoring.
Overtow.
Yeah.
Hear that he's available on the weekends for you.
Yeah,
Good to know. We're always
Yeah.
looking for additional helpers.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. And I'll try to stay in the loop on that project.
Thank you.
Super. Thank you. Anyone from WSU? Nope, I don't see him. Mr. Jirakainen, welcome. Okay, Jessica, come on up, or yeah, and we'll get to the others.
Good afternoon, Jessica Warren, Human Resources. I'm just here to request an executive session for performance of a public employee.
Okay, so after, for about how long?
Start with 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay. Thank you. So
Thank you.
Kathy, you're here and your turn.
Commissioners, Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Manager. Guess I got that too close. I just wanted to introduce our new budget analyst, Brian Perkins, and he comes to us from Bonneville Power Administration, where he last worked. So he started Monday.
Awesome.
Well, great. Brian, welcome aboard.
Welcome. Thank you.
This was the BPA office down in Vancouver.
In Vancouver, yeah.
Super. Well, our offices are always open. So, yeah. Who knows? We may wander around.
So I hope you're prepared. I'm always curious about things like the BPA. So I might swing by.
Okay.
Okay, I will swing by.
Super. Do you have any questions for us?
Currently, I don't know.
It's on
Perfect.
day two.
Day two. All
Awesome.
right. Okay,
Thank you.
well, super. Thanks for stopping in and looking forward for those reports.
Depending on what they say, right?
Well, we need to know either way.
Yeah.
So we will go into executive session in order to review the performance of a public employee. We estimate about 10 minutes. No decisions are expected during that meeting, but we may take action when we come back out to adjourn this meeting. So with that, we'll head on to the back room.
The board is extending the executive session regarding performance of a public employee for an additional 5 minutes until 2:32 p.m. The board is extending the executive session an additional 5 minutes until 2:38 p.m.
So we've returned from our executive session. We did have 2 5-minute extensions. No formal decisions were made, but we do have a report from HR. Jessica?
Good afternoon. So I have a number of reclassification or step increases to make the request for. So the first ones come from the Office of Public Defense to place Charles Angelico at step 5, Jamie Foster at step 3. And then the next set I have comes from the prosecuting attorney's office to place Russell Lutman at step 2, Dakota Black at step 3, Holly McKean at step 5, all effective April 1st. And then the last comes from IT to place Kim Hort at step 6, also effective April 1st.
And did your list include the blended funding from to the end of the year?
I'll do that one.
Oh,
Separate,
afterwards. That's got to be
Those are all the
separate.
step increases.
Okay. So you've heard the staff recommendation. What are your wishes?
I move that we approve the, I make a motion to approve all the recommendations that HR has just produced.
Any discussion? Any debate? All those in favor say aye.
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 I also vote aye. That motion carries.
Thank
And
you.
one more.
And actually one more. So this isn't a step increase request. This is a request to reclassify one of the senior public defense attorneys to a deputy director position, which would be at the same salary scale as the prosecuting attorney chief deputies. He would start at step 1.
All right.
I make a motion to approve that change.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 So vote aye. That motion carries.
Thank you. And then my last recommendation, the prosecuting attorney's office has 2 temporary attorney positions that are set to end at the end of June. The request is to combine those 2 part or temporary positions and make it a temporary position through the end of the year. So this temporary position would end on 12/31 instead of 6/30.
All right.
What's the parlance? So moved?
So moved.
Mhm.
That works for me. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye. That motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Anything else to be brought to our attention? Anything else? Great, seeing no hands up. We'll call that a wrap. Meeting is adjourned.